All right, what's up, you guys? So I've been meaning to do this video on Keith Thurman, and I've been patient, been waiting. I've seen all of the interviews. I see the YouTube community react to Keith Thurman and his interviews. And I haven't done a video on him in a while. I haven't done a video since I saw him sparring. I forgot where he was at, but I saw him sparring with some guy on the street while he was injured. And that was the last time I made a video on him. Um, I've been watching the YouTube community. I've been watching and listening to the videos. I've been looking at his interviews, and basically on seeing what he says about Errol Spence and everything. Terrence Crawford and all the other fighters at 147. Okay. But I've been trying to be patient and see if the guy, let the guy come off his injury, see what he's going to do when he gets off injury. Because in the past, I know a lot of people would, for years now, there are a lot of people that were saying that he was ducking Errol Spence. Errol been calling him out for a while now, for a few years now. And, I remember when Mayweather said, to Thurman, why don't, one of you guys fight Errol Spence for my title? This is when Floyd was still kind of active or whatever. And, that's when the talks began as far as Keith Thurman ducking Errol Spence. And back then, even not too long ago, I mean, as early as last year, I was still defending Keith Thurman. I said that's unfair. And I gave you guys a timeline on why Keith Thurman wasn't ducking Errol Spence. I mean, if he's afraid of Errol Spence in any kind of way, there's no proof of that. He fought Danny Garcia to unify last year. He fought Sean Porter the year before that, who was his mandatory, okay, in a fight that we all wanted to see for years. Um, and he fought Guerrero, Collazo. I mean, he's always fought solid opponents. There was a time where he was being ducked. All right, there was a time where there was a lot of fighters that were turning down Keith Thurman. Marcos Maidana, Robert Guerrero turned it down. Okay, before eventually fighting him. Keith Thurman called out Adrian Broner. He's called out Amir Khan. Okay, we all know he wanted the Floyd Mayweather fight. He wanted that fight more than any other fight, just like every other boxer do. But Keith Thurman was in position to fight Floyd Mayweather, and Floyd Mayweather never gave him the opportunity. Never did. Never did. Um, so I've been here to defend him. I've been a fan of Keith longer than Errol Spence. I've been a fan of Keith longer than Terrence Crawford. All right. I've been here for Keith Thurman. All right. The problem is with Keith Thurman, though, is I noticed a change in Keith Thurman. The reasons why I became a Keith Thurman fan, every time I hear him talk today, he seems like a completely different person. He's not the guy that I've watched over the years and grow up loving as a fan. He's like a completely different guy nowadays. Okay, I remember the Keith Thurman that don't duck me, son, Keith Thurman. Okay, I remember the Keith Thurman that was saying, I'm not afraid to lose my O. Okay, but as much trash as he talked, all right, he was very articulate. He was able to cover a fight. He would speak and break down fights like from a boxing fan's perspective, but with, obviously the experience and the professionalism that he has. I used to enjoy listening to him talk. If you look up any fight hype interview with Keith Thurman from the last year or last few years ago, every time you hear him talk, there was nothing but hundreds of likes and maybe a few dislikes, because I think people were, they liked what I liked in him. The way that he seemed so driven to be the best in a division. Just the way that he talked. He said everything that we wanted to hear. We used to do videos on him and compare him to old school fighters, because that's that kind of energy he was bringing at the time. At the time when he didn't have two titles, when he wasn't the WBA champion, this is the Keith Thurman that we were getting, you know. Um, and then this past year, while he was injured, I mean, it is what he is when he's injured. But Errol Spence came along, and Errol Spence became the new Keith Thurman. Errol Spence became Keith Thurman, but he's even taken it to a different level, you know, as far as just the stories we heard of him in sparring, what he did to Adrian Broner and Floyd Mayweather. It started with that, you know. So people are already fearful of him because of what we've heard about these sparring sessions, right? And then we start seeing his fights, and he's stopping everybody. He stopped Bundu, he stopped Algieri, he stopped a few other guys, common opponents that he had with some of the top fighters. All right, and I'm still waiting. I'm still like, you know what? Let's see what happens when he fights an elite fighter like Kell Brook. Kell Brook was always viewed as an elite fighter at 147. We always it was always an argument between who's the best at 147 between, outside of Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, who was the other best? Was it Porter? Was it Brook? Was it Thurman? It was all of these other guys. And Kell Brook, up to this point, he's proven. I mean, he lost to Triple G, but he took a huge risk fighting Triple G. I gave him a pass for taking that L. A lot of people were saying, oh, he's going to be weight drained coming back to 147 and stuff like that. But, I trust these boxers. I don't rely solely on my opinions, like on my predictions. I don't rely solely on that type of stuff. I like to rely on skills first and then everything else after, age, all of the other kind of things. So when Errol Spence went out to the UK and beat Kell Brook the way that he did, he struggled some early, but he fought like a true champ. He fought hard. It was a point where a lot of people thought he was losing, and he came back and stopped Kell Brook. He made him quit on his knee. He stopped him legit. He broke half his face. The other half, that Triple G broke one half, he broke the other half. As a welterweight, he did that. And now, even though Keith Thurman is injured, when these guys ask Keith Thurman about Errol Spence every single time, he seems a bit uncomfortable. Okay? It's like, you're going to get asked about this kid because everybody that interviews you are going to ask you about Errol Spence because Errol Spence is the next top dog at 147. Yeah, Keith Thurman's a little bit more proven, but even that, you can make the argument that Errol Spence has done more. I mean, you can make an argument on who's the best. It's, a lot of people are already putting Errol Spence as a top 5 now, right now. I've never seen anyone rate Keith Thurman that high. I've barely seen that. Whereas Errol Spence, people are saying that he's the best. People even I'm even hearing more people say that he's better than Terrence Crawford. Okay. Every time Keith Thurman is interviewed about this guy, he's quick. And you don't have to be no genius to notice that this guy, he seems a little bit awkward when he's asked about Errol Spence. But when he's asked about Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, well, he's not asked about those. He normally brings these other fighters up himself. But when it comes to Errol Spence, it's always, he's not on my to-do list, or, Errol got to do more, or the young buck that's only a year younger than you, is going to get his chance. That's not the Keith Thurman that I became a fan of. Keith Thurman is sounding like Floyd Mayweather right now. I don't want Keith Thurman, the promoter. Okay, I want Keith Thurman, the old school fighter that I thought that he was. Right now, I'm getting Keith Thurman, the promoter. Floyd Mayweather. A lot of Floyd Mayweather chitter chat, like, well, let's see what he does, and you know, Keith Thurman. I'm the man. I want 47, and like, if people are not, I don't know if he really believes that. I don't know. I don't really know what's going on. I mean, people do get older. People do become more comfortable. I mean, he does hold two titles. He's pretty accomplished at 147. He's a married man now. Maybe the people do change, but the guy seems real weird. And every time he's getting interviewed, it's just like the look on his face, like, man, like, and it's not just me. It's not just a feeling. It's what he's actually saying in these interviews. I'm not basing it off his body language or his the way he looks or acts when he's asked about Errol Spence. No, I'm talking about what he's actually saying. When a guy holds a title, when you say you didn't fight him because he didn't hold a title, but then now he holds a title and you say he's not on my to-do list, it's like, what? What do you mean he's not on your to-do list? He's not on your immediate to-do list or your long-term to-do list? It just don't sound Keith Thurman like for him to say something like that. You know? It's just weird. Now, this is not a fight prediction I'm doing here. All right? I'm not talking about who would actually win in that fight. This video is not about that. This video is about Keith Thurman and whether or not he actually wants to fight Errol Spence and the change in him overall. I see you comfortably bring up guys like Sean Porter and Danny Garcia, guys that you already beat. A lot of people didn't feel that you beat Sean Porter. A lot of people thought that Sean Porter edged that fight. Okay, it was a close fight. And then there's some people out there that, even though they thought Keith Thurman won the fight against Danny Garcia, they didn't think he looked that impressive beating Danny Garcia, which is fair, But for you to bring up those guys so casually, as if that's the demand that we want, there's no demand for those fights. There's none. There's absolutely no demand. If they're not bringing up Errol Spence, they're bringing up Terrence Crawford because he's the only other guy that's calling you out blatantly. And you're like, well, I got to see what he does at 147 first. Now, I get it. I get it, Keith. I understand that you wanted your title shot for a very, very long time and you didn't get it. Okay? The belt was being passed around about a bunch of dudes. The Paulie Malignaggi's, the Adrian Brothers, the Marcos Maidanas, the Floyd Mayweathers. And you weren't getting your shot because no one would give you a shot. I understand that. Okay? The not so right thing to do is go on for years and do the very same thing. I understand you're injured. All right? But the old Keith Thurman would have been like, when I get back, I'm going for that third title. I want to become undisputed. I'm trying to be a legend here. I want all of the belts. I want all of the belts. Not, this guy's not on my to-do list. And then you start naming other fighters that we know you can beat because we even seen you beat them already, or we just know you're gonna beat. Whereas there's fighters. I mean, listen, he called out everyone before. Amir Khan. He even said that he would go to Kell Brook. He would go to the UK to fight Kell Brook and have a unification match. I've heard him say that in these interviews. So why so different now that it's Errol Spence? It's annoying and it's hard to listen to as a fan. Like, if you lose the fight, your fans are gonna still be there. If you were to lose, it's all good because at least you ain't no coward, you know? But the way you're talking today, you're talking like a promoter now, and it's like, dude, that's not why we like you as a fan. We like you because we believe that you were not fearful of anyone. You just wanted to be the best. You wanted to fight the best. Calling out the typical fighters is not what Keith Thurman, like the typical guys we want you to be, is not what Keith Thurman do. And it's very disappointing. It's very disappointing. Regardless of how I feel about how that fight would go, we still want to see the fight. I mean, you still have a great chance of beating Errol Spence. But the longer you wait, the harder it is. You're making it for yourself. The pressure. Long story short, I don't want to see Keith Thurman fight Errol Spence because his back is against the wall and there's no one left to fight. The recent news is he says he wants 2 tune-ups before Errol Spence. Now, if he had said that, like after Errol won his title, and he said, listen, I had my elbow surgery and whatever. I need to get back to being me. I got to get back. Errol Spence is a good fighter. I need to get back to 100%. I got to make sure I'm 100% when I fight this dude. This dude is a good fighter. So I got to be on point. I want to fight 2 good fighters, whether it's Jesse Vargas or whoever, before I fight this dude. All right? Let me have those 2 fights. I want to get back into it. I've been off for a long time. I've been off for a year. I want to get back on point, handle more. Or even if he said, let me handle these mandatories real quick, and I'm going to get on it with him. Straight like that. There would have been no more asking about Errol Spence every single interview. No, I want to fight Errol Spence, but I got to make sure I'm 100%. That's all he needed to say. I want to fight Errol Spence. We've never heard him say that before. I've never heard him say, just like when he said, I want to fight Kell Brook. I want to fight Amir Khan. I want to fight Adrian Broner, Floyd, Marcos Maidana, Robert Guerrero, Paulie Malignaggi. All these people that I've heard him say, I want to fight Danny Garcia again. All these other people, I heard him say, we could get this fight on. When it comes to Errol Spence, it's a different story every single time. And Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford is moving up from 140. He's moving up. And he was undisputed at 140. Like, I understand, like, you want to see what a fighter does. Like Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is a different story. Mikey Garcia won a fight at 140 against Adrian Broner. He's been bouncing around 135, 140. He hasn't really been back that long. So I can understand a boxer like Errol Spence, who he recently called out and say, I kind of want to see what Mikey's doing at 147. Because if Errol or a Thurman, because he called out Thurman too before. If Errol or Thurman was like, well, I want to see what he does at 147, it's because if they were to beat Mikey and Mikey goes up and that's the first 147 pounder they fight, they're not going to get any credibility for beating Mikey Garcia. Because anyone is going to say, well, Mikey was smaller. It's a lose-lose situation for them. I want to see Mikey fight somebody at 147. But you're talking about a guy that's at the one division lower than you that is undisputed and dominated. He's moving up and willing to fight you, but you're like, oh, I got to see what he does at 147 first. All right. But when Danny Garcia was moving up from 140, everybody was at his neck. They were ready to get in the ring with him. I want a piece of that. Like, yo, dudes love calling out this dude. And that's my go-to every single time. Danny Garcia. You know why? Because people love calling him out for no reason. He's not doing anything to make people... What about Danny Garcia? What about him is making these fighters want to get in the ring with him? You know what it is. They know they can beat him. They want to be the one to expose him. He had the Herrera fight that people thought he lost already. He had a Peterson fight that people thought he lost. You know, people don't think he's that good. He's a champion. I think he unified at 140. He came at 147 and won a vacant title. A vacant title against who? Paulie Malignaggi. So that's how he got his title. I could be wrong. I know the title was vacant, but I'm not sure if it was Paulie or not. But anyway, when Danny Garcia was moving up from 140, people wanted to fight him. When Adrian Broner was moving up from 135 or wherever he was at, people wanted to fight him because they wanted to be the first to beat those guys because they were undefeated or whatever, and people wanted to be, they wanted to be that first guy to give them their first L. Okay, well, Errol Spence is at your division undefeated. Take his L. Take his O. Give him his first L. That's what I was trying to say. Give him his first loss. All right? Terrence Crawford. Why can't these fighters just look at it where, like, this guy is undefeated. I want to be the first to beat him. Everybody thinks Terrence Crawford is all great. He's pound for pound. They're rating him pound for pound number 1 or 2 or whatever. As a fighter that I thought Keith Thurman was, I would think he would have the mindset to say, I can beat this dude. I want to fight him. Because he's calling you out. And you're like, I want to see what he do at 147. That's kind of corny to me. Because it's like, they respect, like if Keith Thurman beat Crawford, they would respect that win over any other win he has. Let's keep it 100. If Keith Thurman were to beat Terrence Crawford, would you respect that win over the Danny Garcia win? Over the Sean Porter win? Over the Robert Guerrero or Leonard Bundu win? I would. I know I would. Keith Thurman has never fought a pound-for-pound fighter. So I would respect that win over that. And the same for Errol. The same as for Errol because Errol pretty much said the same thing when they asked him about Terrence Crawford. Now, he was a little different. He was like, I want the Keith Thurman fight because we both have the same manager. We can just get the fight going. But he did say that he wants to see what Terrence Crawford do at 147. So, yeah, Errol, I want you to fight Terrence Crawford too. If he were to fight Terrence Crawford right now, that would be great. Why wait? Why wait? What are we waiting for? But we'll see what happens. It's too early to call that yet because Terrence is going to be fighting Jeff Horn, and at least at that time, he wants a title. But Terrence Crawford has already called out Thurman and Errol Spence, okay, without a title. So let's wait and let him collect that title at Jeff Horn. I just want to make sure, I hope that both Spence and Thurman keep that same energy when he wins the title. I have no doubt in my mind that Errol Spence would. I'm not too sure with Keith Thurman. Until Errol Spence proves that he's not the same, then, as far as right now, Errol Spence is legit. I mean, he's calling everybody out. But I hope he has the same energy with Terrence Crawford. But going back to what I was saying about Keith Thurman, man, he's changed. Life changes you. I understand that. But don't do these guys like the way Floyd and them was doing you. Now you're in position to prove that you're the best. The 147 division, we don't have to rely on Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather no more. Those guys are out. Pacquiao, I don't know what he's going to do in his last fight, but he's not relevant like that no more. He's just not. It is what it is. So you got 2 other guys that's popping. You got a couple other guys that's popping right now. Let's get it on. This is a new generation. Who's the best right now at 147? I want to see. Video's kind of long, but I had to speak on a lot of things that, I've been, and I'm sure there's a lot of things this is all the stuff off top of the head that I've been seeing and hearing from Keith Thurman interview after interview after interview. Every single time I see this man talk, it's just like, come on, Keith. Like, this is not you. You're not acting normal. And if you're a Keith Thurman fan and you think that this is just a normal Keith Thurman, then you got to be delusional at this point, because this is a different guy. A completely different guy. And all the young buck, I don't like when, like, the young buck do this. The dude is only 1 year younger than you. You know, you mean you've been boxing as a professional longer, but the guy is 1 year younger than you. Errol Spence is not that young. This guy's not 21, 22 years old. He's not Ericson Lubin. This guy's been around for a while. You know? So let's get it together. No more excuses. Thurman, I hope he has his tune-up. Okay? I hope he has his tune-up. I mean, he will have his tune-up. You know, I personally don't think Jesse Vargas is a tune-up. You know, I don't. Jesse Vargas is not a tune-up. That's a real fight. Is it the hardest fight at 147? No, it's not. But he's not no tune-up. Okay? Ask Tim Bradley that shit. Jesse Vargas is not a tune-up. All right? Ask Saddam Ali that. He's not a tune-up. Is it a good fight? Yeah. You know, if he's going to have 2 fights leading up to Errol, I don't think Jesse should be the first one. I think Jesse should be the second fight, maybe. But, you know, as far as a tune-up, you know, I don't know. I don't know who's out there right now that is considered a tune-up. You know, I think a Devin Alexander would have been a tune-up. You know, I consider him based on, his past, his resume in the past few years. I would consider him now a tune-up. You know, I don't know what's going to happen with him and Victor Ortiz, but I consider both of those guys tune-ups. You know, Jesse Vargas is not a tune-up. Andre Berto, you know, regardless of his losses that he's taken, he's not a tune-up still. You know, not that he would fight Andre Berto for a tune-up. Those guys are good friends. But that's not a tune-up. You know, a tune-up is, like, I don't know. Philip Greco, like, I think that's who Amir Khan might fight. Or Van Herden, those guys that Errol Spence fought. Those guys are tune-ups. They're good. They're good fighters, but they're not, elite fighters or nowhere, ex-champions, stuff like that. They've been, they take their losses when they fight the top fighters. Keith Thurman got to be very careful with Jesse Vargas if he is going to fight him. But if he is going to come back and fight Jesse and look impressive against Jesse, if he looks impressive against Jesse Vargas, I don't see why he needs to go any longer with trying to get the Errol Spence fight. If you go and fight Jesse Vargas and you dominate him, why? What are we waiting for? But if you go and fight Jesse Vargas and you look a little rusty, and the fight was kind of close, maybe you need a second tune-up. All right. So anyway, that's it for the video, man. I apologize for being it for so long, but there's guys on this YouTube thing that they make. There's a lot of channels that make videos on Keith Thurman or Keith Thurman related stuff every single week. Because if Keith Thurman do an interview, it's kind of worth talking about. I just kind of stopped because he's still injured, and I don't like to keep doing video. I feel like I did enough videos before talking about the Errol Spence stuff last year where Errol Spence didn't even fight Kell Brook yet. And people were saying Keith was stuck in him. And I was defending Keith then because I felt that it was unfair to say that when Errol Spence didn't prove himself yet as a welterweight. But now that he has a belt and Keith is saying the same thing, that's the problem I have. Keith is saying the same thing now that Errol has a title, and I think that's unfair, So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Drop your comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you shortly with another video. All right, peace.